Well, this is the last week of our 4-week message series on Sunday mornings that we've been calling Healthy Habits. And what we've learned so far is that habits are, well, habitual. We do them over and over again without really thinking about it. They're pretty much automatic. And most habits really begin the same way. Something triggers a desire for a reward that we think a particular activity promises. We start craving that reward and eventually respond by giving the activity a try. And when the reward comes, our brains tell us to keep doing it over and over again until a new habit develops. Now, the problem is that habits are not neutral. They're not neutral. Most habits are either healthy or unhealthy, constructive or destructive, good or bad. And unfortunately, bad habits seem to be the ones that are the strongest because they usually bring immediate gratification while delaying the negative effects until later, sometimes much later. And although bad habits are initially attractive to us, they usually end up in feelings of guilt, shame, and self-loathing, which leads us to indulge in more bad habits in order to soothe our feelings of inadequacy and failure. And that's because bad habits are not really about the negative behaviors themselves. They're about trying to satisfy deeper feelings of deprivation, of loneliness, of inferiority. And to make matters worse, bad habits tend to build on each other, kind of like a domino effect, like we saw in the opening trailer. Little bad habits lead to bigger ones. And before you know it, you've fallen into a pit of despair. When people fall off the edge and their lives derail completely, they often look back and wonder how they got there. And often it's the result of a series of smaller bad choices that compound over time and eventually result in disaster. That's why the challenge we issued to you at the beginning of this series was simply to try to start one good, healthy habit. Just one positive change in your life can go a long way toward reversing the effects of whatever bad habits you may be struggling with. Good habits ultimately develop into virtues. And virtues are qualities of moral excellence. And a strong set of virtues generates good character overall, and good character honors and glorifies God. So that's why, really, we should be spending our lives trying to develop a positive character pleasing to God, and we do that by cultivating little habits that are good for us and breaking bad ones. And in this series, we've offered you some practical advice, very practical advice, on how to do just that, how to form good habits and how to break bad ones. And so what we've said is that to do that, we need to have the right approach, we need to do it in the right time, we need to do it with the right motivation, and we need to do it using the right process. First of all, we said that we should start with small, incremental improvements over time. Radical attempts to change almost never work. A better approach is to make tiny tweaks in the right direction. That's the right approach. Well, second, we also said that changing your habits takes time. You can't rush it. Most people give up way too soon when they don't see immediate results. And so forming good habits has to be done in the right time. But if you stick with it day after day, the results will start to compound. Only after you've taken the time to lay the groundwork can you expect to see noticeable progress. So stick with it and don't give up. But we also said you need the right motivation in order to form good habits. Too often people are motivated by the desire to achieve some external goal, like losing 50 pounds or drinking less or praying more. The motivation is the desire to lose weight or to quit alcohol or to spend more time with God. Those are good goals. But really, the motivation that's going to work in forming good habits should be the kind of person that we want to become. The goal shouldn't be to lose weight, it should be to become a fit person. The goal shouldn't be to stop drinking, but to become a sober and responsible person. The goal shouldn't be to pray more, it should be to become a spiritual person. The best and most worthwhile habits and the ones that stick are those that lead to a change in our identity and how we see ourselves. But you could have the right approach, the right reason, and the right time to form a good habit, but you also need the right way. We also need the right process. And the best way to form good habits and break bad ones is to make good habits more obvious, more attractive, easy, and satisfying to do, while finding ways to make our bad habits invisible, unattractive, difficult, and unpleasant to do. And we gave you lots of examples on how to do that. And if you missed any one of our prior episodes in this series, you can go back and watch them on our website at www.sthilary.org. Now, today we're going to look at one final habit that is the key to living a life of virtue and good character. You could say that it's the most important habit of all because it's the one habit that makes all the others possible. The Greek philosopher Aristotle called it the master virtue. You can try to form all the great habits you want, but if you don't have this particular habit, all your efforts will go to waste. And so to discover what this master virtue is, let's take a look at a passage from the book of Kings in the Old Testament of the Bible. King David, you might remember, was the greatest king the nation of Israel had ever known. And when he died, his son Solomon took the throne, and he soon developed an international reputation for having great wisdom. In fact, you might remember the famous story of how Solomon resolved a difficult court case involving two women who claimed to be the mother of the same infant. Solomon ordered that the baby be cut in half with a sword and each woman be given half of the child. It was a brilliant strategy because the true mother stepped forward and pleaded for the life of the child, offering him to the other woman in order to save the child's life. Solomon then awarded the child to that woman because it was obvious she was the real mother. A stroke of genius, a ruling based on wisdom. But Solomon's wisdom didn't come out of nowhere. Right before this story, God appeared to Solomon in a dream, and he told him to ask for anything that he wanted, any wish that he wanted. Now, I don't know about you, but I probably would have asked to win the lottery or a vacation home in Tahoe. But Solomon asked for none of those things. Solomon didn't ask for riches or fame or success or any material thing that most people would ask for. He actually asked for something far greater. Here's what Solomon asked for. He said to God, "I am a mere youth, not knowing at all how to act. Give your servant, therefore, an understanding heart to judge your people and to distinguish right from wrong." In other words, Solomon asked for wisdom. And because his request was so pure, God immediately granted it. "I give you a heart so wise and understanding," God told him, "that there has never been anyone like you up to now, and after you there will come no one to equal you." But notice that Solomon didn't ask for just any kind of wisdom. He didn't ask for book smarts or abstract reason. He didn't ask for a body of scientific knowledge to know everything in the world, or even technical know-how. What he asked for was a very particular type of wisdom that the Greeks called phronesis. Phronesis. Phronesis is sometimes known as practical wisdom, and it's the habit of making good life decisions. At the heart of phronesis is the ability to deliberate wisely between several different courses of action in a given situation and choose the best one under the circumstances. In other words, practical wisdom is the ability to do the right thing at the right time for the right reason. Recently, I watched a fascinating movie. It was called Official Secrets. It's a true story of a British woman who leaked information to the press about an illegal spy operation. Catherine Gunn was a translator who worked for a British government intelligence agency, and in the course of her work, she came across a top secret memo with information about U.S. officials trying to dig up dirt on members of the United Nations Security Council for the purpose of blackmailing them into voting in favor for the 2003 war with Iraq. Catherine jeopardized her job, her marriage, her freedom, and even her own life when she decided to blow the whistle. She risked everything to save lives and prevent a war that she considered to be unjust. But her government called her a traitor and put her on trial instead. And all through that movie, I kept asking myself, what would I have done? What would you have done? What would the right decision have been in that situation? You know, all of us face very complicated moral dilemmas from time to time. And knowing how to react is critical. What should you do, for example, if a relative with an alcohol or substance abuse problem comes to you and asks you for money and tells you that he needs it to feed his family? What do you do? Should you fire an employee for misconduct or give him another chance? Another hard moral decision. Or how do you respond when your teenager comes home way past curfew? You've been up hours worried about her. It's the middle of the night, but then she tells you that she was talking to a friend and trying to talk her out of suicide. A coworker is always taking credit for another colleague's work, but she won't stand up for herself. Do you intervene and say something to the boss? What do you say if a friend asks you for your honest opinion, but you know it would crush her emotionally? What do you do? From our friendships to our jobs to our conduct in public, seemingly small decisions often pose tough ethical dilemmas, and knowing the right thing to do in every situation is not always easy. And one misstep can cause a great deal of pain and suffering and regret. But the virtue of practical wisdom can lead us to good decisions and the kind of people we want to be. Practical wisdom is the master virtue because it balances all the other virtues and applies them in the right way to the needs and context of the situation in front of you. It helps you to avoid overreacting or underreacting. All of us should want to develop practical wisdom because making good decisions is the foundation of a good life. But developing practical wisdom is not simple or clear-cut. It's not something you can learn from a book. But there are steps that you can take to start learning how to make better and better decisions. Well, first of all, if you want to make good decisions, you need to know what your ultimate purpose in life is. and why you exist. Every decision you make should be measured against that purpose. You also need to have a good grasp on absolute truth. What is true? What is not true? Because you can't make a good decision in an information vacuum. If you don't know what's truly important, if you don't know what to value, how can you make a good decision? And for Christians, for followers, people who follow Christ, that information comes from the Bible. Scripture is filled with wisdom and stories of good and bad choices that we can learn from, and lessons on wisdom. Take, for instance, the gospel passage that we're looking at today. Jesus says that the kingdom of heaven is like a treasure buried in a field, which a person finds and hides again, and out of joy goes and sells all that he has and buys that field. Then Jesus offers another comparison to make the point completely clear. He says, the kingdom of heaven is like a merchant searching for fine pearls, and when he finds a priceless pearl, he goes and sells all that he has and he buys it. In both cases, they go and they sell everything that they have because they want the kingdom of God, because they see it as a priceless treasure. They see what is important. And our faith alters our priority and radically changes what we value. Things that we once thought were important no longer carry the same weight. When we study and receive the truth of God's Word, we gain wisdom in understanding. We gain wisdom in understanding the most important priorities in life. And that wisdom enables us to make better choices. The more familiar you become with God's Word, the more, as St. Paul says in the second reading, God will make all things work for good. So if you want to make better decisions, study the Bible every day. Even a few lines or paragraphs will go a long way. Well, another step to developing greater practical wisdom is learning to trust your conscience. Now, conscience is not a gut feeling. It's not intuition. Somewhere deep in the most secret core and the inner sanctuary of every person is the voice of God calling us to do good and avoid evil. That's conscience. It's our conscience that guides us in making practical human judgments about what to do in every situation. And just so you know, you are bound by the dictates of your conscience. No one should ever be forced to violate his or her conscience. But it's also a sin not to follow your own conscience, wherever it leads you. Katharine Gunn, in that movie, Official Secrets, for example, took an oath of fidelity to her government. But her conscience told her that blind obedience in that particular situation would be wrong. And so she followed her conscience. Well, one last thing can help you develop greater practical wisdom. We've talked about reading the Bible and studying Scripture. We've talked about trusting in our conscience, but also experience. Your experience cultivates deeper practical wisdom. I mean, have you ever wondered why churches are usually filled with a lot of older people? It's not because they don't have anything better to do. It's because they've finally figured out what's really important in life. See, with experience, you gain wisdom. And you can't learn it in a classroom or a laboratory. It's something you just have to do. You have to get your hands dirty. You have to make some mistakes, and you have to learn from them. The more decisions you make, the better you get. Practical wisdom ultimately is learned in the school of hard knocks. So, your experience in life matters. Rather than dwelling on regrets from your past decisions, use those regrets use your mistakes for your benefit to grow in practical wisdom so that you can make better decisions in the future and help others make good decisions too. 4 weeks ago when we began this series on healthy habits, you may have been wondering why we chose to focus on good habits. Well, it's because the highest dignity of every human being is the freedom to choose good or evil, right or wrong. Every bad habit you quit and every good habit you form adds to your wisdom, and it increases your virtue, and it improves your character. And whether you're just starting out in life or heading into your final days, there is no greater or nobler endeavor in life than building good character. Because your character influences the quality of the decisions you make. And the good decisions you make shape the person you will become. And who you ultimately become, when all is said and done, is the greatest gift you could ever offer to God.